Welcome, everyone. My name is Edward Roske. My better half joining me will be Glenn Schwartzberg. We're going to be talking today about Essbase, whether you should be using 19C or you should be using Freeform planning, and in which cases. We're going to do a quick poll at the moment, just to, if I could manage to launch just question one. I think I can't actually. We're going to hold off on this question and launch it at the end. So we're going to let everybody not only tell us where they're moving Essbase at the end of today's session, but also who you think won today's most awesome debate. So Glenn and I, we've both been in interRel differing lengths. I've been here since the very beginning, back in 1997. By that point, I think Glenn had been doing Essbase for 5 or 6 years when interRel was founded, and eventually he joined up. What many of you do not know is what Glenn and I did before we got into Essbase. I'll suffice to say we were students of different types of karate.
Get ready for the ultimate tournament. Powerhouse legacies, underdog stories, and epic rivalries. The road to the championship begins.
That's right. Glenn and I got our start in the world of karate, as I say it. And most recently, Glenn and I have gotten back into the world of karate. We have started warring karate / Essbase dojos. So representing the side of Essbase 19C, or as I like to put it, the old way of doing things. Glenn, strike first, strike hard, no mercy, Schwartzberg. Do you want to say anything before we begin and before you doubtless lose?
No, I think I'll pass. I'll let my actions speak louder than words.
Well, I want to let Glenn go first because I believe that karate is only for defense. So my name is Edward Roske, representing what I like to call Miyagi-Do. So Glenn will be representing Cobra Essbase Kai. So in terms of our two differing schools of thought, we have Essbase, which long precedes any pre-built applications on top of it. So we're going to be talking about what reasons why you would want to use that Essbase 19C, the next version of Essbase, or why you might want to be doing your Essbase creation inside of Freeform planning within Oracle EPM. But I'm going to give Glenn an opportunity to talk through Essbase 19C for a little bit, just at a high level, to explain who the Essbase 19C contender is. We'll turn it over to me and I'll talk the Freeform planning side. If you have any questions, please toss those in the Q&A over the course of this session, and we will be addressing them as we go along. So I'll turn it over to Glenn.
Why, thank you. So Essbase 19C really is just the next version of Essbase. It's a long continuum. I started in Essbase 3.1.1, and so this is just the next version. It's available today on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. It's going to be coming soon as 21C, Safe Harbor in the near future, we've been told. But again, nothing ever goes as planned. You do have to do an out-of-place migration to go to 19C or 21C from your on-prem or from OAC. If you're on OAC Essbase today, you can easily migrate over to 19C. If you go to the next slide, Edward.
Well, I don't believe there's anything new in Essbase 19C, unless you want to prove me wrong.
Of course I will. So 19C, we have an enhanced hybrid engine that is much better than the older hybrid engine, 11.124 or even 12C. We've got a better, deeper integration with SmartView. The scenario management in both OAC Essbase and 19C is far superior than what you get in planning. they've been continually improving performance. They've, enhanced the kernel so much. You get all of the latest tools. You get things that are not available in, sorry, I'm looking at the picture.
My goal is to distract. Lose
That's
this
right.
debate. Yes.
You'll get a lot of feature functionality that you don't get in freeform planning. And you get connectivity to be able to do things like drill through. So where you couldn't get that in OAC Essbase for on-prem, we now have it for 19C, much better than what you can do with data management in freeform planning. So just a lot of new things. Now, I will say, if you go to Essbase 19C or you go to freeform planning, it's still Essbase. And that's my first love, but I think 19C is better.
So in terms of Essbase, as Glenn was mentioning, it is Essbase underneath the covers. Whether it's supporting freeform applications or it's supporting 19C/21C. By the way, we did get some questions on whether there'll be a 20C. Suffice to say, no one wants to be associated with this year ever. So they're just going to jump and go to 21C, even if it does come out in 2020. I think of Essbase as an amazing car. Think of it as a Tesla Model S Ludicrous. And there are two different ways you can get it. You can own a Tesla Model S Ludicrous, and you have to remember to do things like keep it charged. But you also have full capability to do whatever you want. You can take it wherever you want. You can park it in your garage. It's always there when you want it. If something breaks, though, you're the one who has to take it in and get it fixed, or you have to fix it yourself. But you can change things. You can change the color. You can change the radio. You can put racing stripes down the side. Freeform applications are a Tesla Model S Ludicrous, but it's owned by an Uber driver. So when you call up the Uber driver and they pull up, they can take you anywhere you want to go. And it's the exact same car, but it's no longer directly under your control, for good and for bad. For good, it's not your problem. You don't have to worry about charging it. You don't have to worry about making payments on it. You don't have to worry about if it breaks, how you're actually going to get it fixed. So it is Essbase, but think of it more as Essbase in a SaaS type environment, software as a service, where all the problems are being managed by Oracle. Now, here's the good news. Traditional Essbase, if you wanted to migrate it into planning on the EPM cloud side, there are dimensions and things it's going to stuff in there. It has 6, for instance, dimensions that are mandatory inside of normal planning within EPM Cloud. Freeform planning is so freeform, they're not only required dimensions, you can actually take your existing Essbase cube, your OTL, you can take your existing OTL file and you can populate it right into freeform planning. Also, you have the capability in freeform planning to create brand new cubes from scratch. So it's not just a migration path, but it is an Oracle EPM managed way of actually doing things. So at this point, we're going to have a bit of a debate between Cobra Kai on one side and Miyagi-Do on the other. So representing that Essbase 19C side will be the great Glenn. And from my side, it'll be the one who defeated Glenn back in the 1984 All Valley Karate Championship. So it's essentially the 84 championship just 36 years later. Gosh, that really seems difficult to say. So we're going to start by talking about customer managed versus Oracle managed. So because I believe in letting my more experienced competitor go first, I will let you in each case talk about the Essbase 19C way of things. So Glenn, in terms of from an Essbase freeform, you know what? I'm going to cheat, just like I cheated back in the 84 championship and used an illegal kick. To be clear, the crane kick was illegal. You're not allowed to kick somebody directly in the face. I'm just going to cut in front of you and go first. So in terms of freeform, people say, does it have all the capabilities of on-prem? Is it semi-PaaS? Is it full platform as a service? Is it full software as a service? It's clearly software as a service. But from an Oracle standpoint, it is Oracle managed. So you pay a flat fee, basically a per user fee to access all of Oracle EPM Cloud Enterprise, and that gives you access to create as many cubes as you want. And I'll get to the as many cubes as you want in a second. Behind the scenes, it's essentially a really patched, really optimized version of Essbase 11.124. They did some things, for instance, on the hybrid side, that you can't directly get access to this version that it uses to support freeform planning, but that's essentially, think of it as a slightly better version of 11.124. Now, I said you create as many cubes as you want. Yes, but right now, we put 1 cube per server, basically per service instance. So if you have 5 Essbase applications you want to keep in production, you're going to need 5 of those instances. Now, I'm sure Glenn will say that that is a weakness, that with his Essbase 19C, you could put all 5 in one server. I view that as a strength because Oracle provides all 5 of those servers for that same flat user cost that you have, at least at the moment under the current licensing. If they need to stand up 5 additional servers, you get the power of 5 servers, and Oracle maintains that cost at no additional cost to you. Because with enterprise subscription, you are allowed unlimited service instances. And I say unlimited because I haven't seen it yet, but if you called up and you said, we have 2,800 cubes, Oracle, I'm going to need you to create me 2,800 servers to support, probably they're going to go, I'm sorry, what? But at the moment, at least, it's unlimited. You have full support for hybrid as it exists in 11.125. And I'm sure Glenn will tell you all about how that's not really next generation, but you do have hybrid access, and you can get there from on-prem. You can take your LCM, do a snapshot of your current Essbase environment, and move out. Glenn, how do you dare stack up against that?
Oh, this is easy. So it really is infrastructure as a service, which means that you have control over it. You have to do the patching yourself. However, they've made the patching extremely easy. It's using an O patch. The last time I patched our instance, which was about a month ago, it took me 15 minutes to patch it. So basically you upload the patch, you apply it, and you're done, which means that you can choose when you're going to patch your instance, as opposed to Oracle, who's going to do it on the first Friday and the third Friday of every month, even if you're not ready for it. So I get more control.
The way everything I hear you saying is, it sounds like you need more IT support. You want to address this?
You didn't let me finish what I was going to talk about.
Okay, fine. I was just going to cut off and go to the next one. You might actually see something good. So I'm like, I'm on to the next slide at this point.
That's right. So it is 19C, which is the latest and greatest. And you're going to get the versions of Essbase much sooner than you will in freeform planning. They're way back on 11.125. We're at 19C. Very soon it'll be patched up to 21C. Unlimited, we get as many cubes as we want. So if you're doing very complex things with partitioning or other things, it will work. You're going to have problems with doing that in freeform applications. It is the next generation of hybrid, so we get the biggest and best first, and migration is a no-brainer. So I'm going to continue on my roll. If you go to the next slide.
Now, can you possibly address this IT support issue that I was trying to have you address earlier?
Okay, so you might need some IT support, but frankly, 99% of the stuff that happens, you're not going to be getting on the server. We've had our instance up for quite a long time, and we've never had to get onto it except to apply the patches. So if somebody like me who is non-infrastructure can apply a patch, almost anybody can. You might need IT for setting up your instance, for example, VPN and single sign-on federation, that type of things, but you're not going to get those in freeform application. The automation, if I'm migrating from on-prem, I can use my existing Maxell, make a few changes to it, and I'm good to go. Scripting, you can back up the server. There is a backup script to do that, but we actually build custom scripts to do application backup because we want more control over when those happen anyway. So, and as I said with patching, we get to control when the patches happen. So what about Freeform, Edward?
Well, I think we can all agree that in the Essbase 19C world, it's roughly the equivalent of mowing your own lawn. Some people find it fun, and yeah, you don't have to plant the individual seeds, but I kind of like when someone else takes care of it for me. As much fun, maybe I maintain a little bonsai tree, but from an Essbase Freeform standpoint, I don't want to have to know anything about infrastructure. I don't want to hire a high price, but deservedly so consulting firm. I just want someone else to maintain it. And the nice part about Freeform is the infrastructure is maintained from Oracle. I don't need to have an IT department. If Glenn says if he can install a patch, anybody can. I can't. I have long since given up any sort of even knowing where to go into any sort of patch and install, let alone knowing where to find OPatch. From my point, I want that to be automated. I also want those patches to be dribble patches. I don't like the world of massive, oh, let's do this patching every, 3 months to 3 years to 5+ years. I really want it to be, if there's a security issue, it just immediately gets patched. And I like knowing that I have that security that Oracle is behind me. So if there is, some sort of a attempted hack, or there's a major bug that turns out in the next Intel chip, that Oracle is going to take care of it. I still have the ability to automate those activities using things like EPM Automate. And if for some reason I really want to void my warranty, just like you can tell your Uber driver, I don't want you to go that way, take the tunnel, not the bridge, you do have the capability to do full REST API against those Freeform applications. So from a backup standpoint, it is fully automated. You can do your own additional takeover if you wish. So you could do for instance, your own version of a nightly backup. And again, all those patches are automated for you. So in terms of how you actually administer Essbase, I will freely admit that it is different when administering Freeform Essbase versus Essbase how you've traditionally done it in 19C. Now, it is changing a bit on the 19C side. We did have that whole brand new jet interface. We are getting Esslight coming out in 21C. But Essbase inside of Freeform is essentially how I view it as how you would create an outline editor if you could do it nowadays. You can do it through the standard user interface. You can actually do it through the classic dimension editor if you want, but it is a more modern type of environment to do it in. It does have more limitations in terms of what you could do than what's fully available in either the Jet UI for Essbase 19C or Esslight. For instance, you're not creating varying attribute dimensions inside of a Freeform application inside of the interface. I can automate some things, such as my dimension building. I can do that through data management. I can do enterprise data management and actually feed it in. I also have the ability to manage my dimensions inside of SmartView. So I don't need to have somebody go learn what the web interface is. If they're comfortable with Excel and it's a finance person, they're spending all their time with Excel anyway, I'm going to give the ability to manage dimensions inside of there. Now, do I have the ability to do artificial intelligence, go look at my Excel spreadsheet and build an Essbase cube on top of it? The answer to that is no, but I do have the same UI that I'm using to administer my planning applications, my consolidation applications. I now just have the ability to administer Essbase in there as well. Glenn?
Okay, so outline editing, well, we have the web UI, which gives us a real look at what the outline structure looks like. And we also have Cube Designer in Excel, so I can take this offline and do it, take my time, not worry about timing out any of that. And we do have the hierarchy viewer in the Cube Designer, so I can see it there as well. So I get that hierarchical view, where in Freeform planning, I'm guessing and hoping I get it right before I build it. So I do like the graphical ability. I can manage my dimensions either in the UI or in Cube Designer. Just like I've done today, I can use tools that I'm used to. So MaxL and SCLI in order to automate my dimension building. And I can do it all in Excel if I really want to. So I get lots of different capabilities.
So continuing down that path, could you talk about like how you access Essbase 19C, like on the URLs and whatnot?
I guess I could, since that's the next slide. So for our Essbase instance, we're going to have one URL for, well, we'll have one or more depending on how many instances we stand up. But I'm going to have one URL for all of the cubes on an instance. I don't have to worry about which instance which cube is in. I have the ability to run jobs on the UI, but I don't have the option to schedule jobs. So that's where I think Freeform may win out on this one. But we do have the jobs. We have sub vars, just like we always have. We can't connect to our cloud applications. So if I wanted to get data out of an EPM planning application, I'd have to basically download it and load it into Essbase. I do have the ability to use auditing. I turn it on or off cube by cube, and it will tell me what people are doing. And there's really good REST API calls to integrate it into other things. We say an approvals process. Well, Essbase cubes on their own really aren't budgeting cubes, so we don't need an approvals process per se. But if we are using sandboxing, there is an approvals process built into it. And the sandboxing is far superior to what planning sandboxes are.
So
how about you, Edward?
Yeah, the easiest way to think about Essbase 19C versus Freeform is imagine all those no's were turned to yeses on the Freeform side. There's one minor little caveat, which is if you have 700 cubes, you have 700 URLs inside of Oracle EPM Cloud to access those Freeform planning applications, at least at the moment. Hashtag safe harbor, they are working on letting you put those cubes on the same server. As I said before, I consider this an advantage because rather than a series of, let's say 128 gig RAM servers that you get with Freeform, with Essbase you get one 128 gig server, and you have to pay for all the additional capacity as part of OCI. What I do right now is if I have 5 cubes and I don't want my users to have to worry about what the URLs are, I can do it in private connections and do it within SmartView and elsewhere to help manage that connectivity. But let's actually pivot to talking about user interface. So I'm going to go first on that one. I'm going to talk about how we can access through about 10 different ways the Freeform planning application side of things. To point out the obvious, planning, including Freeform planning, was built from the ground up to have Excel as its access tool. So we have the ability to do all those things we see over the web. We can do those inside of Excel or Word, or a little bit of it over in PowerPoint or even in Outlook, but I have the SmartView capability to hit those Freeform applications because planning has access. SmartView has access to planning. So everything that you could do in terms of accessing a planning application, you can use that exact same technology now to hit these Freeform cubes. What that means is you can take a cube right now that you've got on-prem that you can only access through Excel. That's the primary dominant interface. You go, gosh, I want a little more structure. I want to be able to create forms. You take that on-prem OTL, that Essbase outline, you import it up into a Freeform application. Yes, you still get your SmartView you had back in the Essbase days, but now you get data forms. You get dashboards 2.0 right there built into the Oracle EPM interface. So you can have all your gears and widgets and your heads-up cockpit display right on top of that Freeform cube. You have the ability to edit those dashboards. You also have task lists. So you can say, as part of what you're doing, well, you're going to maybe input your plan, and then maybe at step 7, you're going to go off and look at a report. And then at step 8, you're going to go and do ad hoc analysis against a 17-dimensional hybrid cube. You can do that. That can be right part of your task list. You can have financial reporting hitting Freeform applications. I'll spoil a little bit. Right now, that doesn't work against the Essbase 19C world. It may be happening at some point in the future, but at the moment, you can use FR against those Freeform cubes versus on the 19C world. Narrative reporting will hit both of them, as Glenn's going to talk about. But the nice part about Freeform planning is if you want Oracle EPM Cloud Enterprise, you not only get Freeform Essbase, you get narrative reporting. So rather than have to buy a separate tool, you can use it directly on top of those Essbase cubes. You are limited in terms of some of the power of MDX and things like Essbase CLI that you were able to do. But with that one caveat, it looks like you have a lot more power. But let's switch over to Glenn, talk about what you can do with Essbase 19C.
Certainly. So obviously we do get SmartView, and it's got heavy integration. It's the first thing that SmartView ever worked against. I do agree with you, Edward. First time for everything that's actually being recorded. You know, the power of data forms and dashboards within the tool are nice. Now, if I want dashboards, I can always hook up OAC and use my data visualization or build real dashboards out of it. It is a different purchase, but it's a bit more powerful than what Freeform would have built into it. I don't get my task list. I don't get financial reporting. If I want narrative reporting, I can hook it up. I would have to have a pod of narrative reporting, but it will talk to 19C Essbase. By the way, Edward, I think that you were a little mistaken saying that financial reporting you think will talk to 19C. I don't think it'll ever talk to 19C.
That's valid.
It will talk to 21C on premises. That's a little bit different.
Yeah, I was trying to give you like a win that you didn't deserve, but yes, you're right. FR will never directly talk to 19C.
See, I don't lie like you. I give real fact.
Yes, they to be clear, they are working on getting it financial reporting to talk to 21C. Tufik said that it works technically. Talked to Tufik, talked to Mike Larimer, and they've said that indeed it does work. They just need to officially certify it, and then they also need to actually officially release 21C. So when 21C does come out, you should be able to FR against it. Whether it's running on OCI or it's running on on-prem, theoretically, if you open up the right ports, you will be allowed to have financial reporting talk to it.
And,
anything more you want to add on that, Glenn?
Well, I do want to, somebody asked a question that was kind of related. You had said that you can use REST calls against Freeform applications. And to be clear, you can use the planning REST calls, not the Essbase REST calls.
That is an awesome point.
So you don't get all of the REST API functionality from Essbase that you do in 19C.
Yeah, this is a really good point. Again, since you were nice enough to give me one, I'll give you one. The REST API, there's not a separate language, because the language really is REST API, but the set of calls and things you're going through kind of the planning calls to access Freeform Essbase, because technically the name is Freeform Planning. We just all call it just Freeform, simply because most people are doing cubes that have nothing to do with planning. They're doing mostly really large reporting and analysis type cubes, but yes, it does roll to the planning team, so you go through that segment of the REST API. But there are a whole different set of REST API calls used to access Essbase 19C. I'm trying to think, and I'm sure there is, I just can't think of it off the top of my head, some things that you could do with the Essbase 19C full REST API that you can't do on the planning side. I know there are some things you can do with the planning API, the REST API, like pull-up forms and things like that, launch data management calls that you can't do with the Essbase one. And I'm sure the other way is true as well. I just can't think of any cases right now.
Considering they use their own REST APIs to do everything for 19C, you can pretty much do anything that's Essbase related.
Well, and that's a really good point. Wow, that's 2 in 5 minutes. The REST API, the Oracle's mentality is that REST API should be the universal glue to connect all cloud applications. So if they can do something through their front end, like you can do something on the cloud, like an Essbase 19C, things you can launch through the Jet UI, all it's doing behind the scenes is making REST API calls. Even if you're using like ESS CLI, it's making REST API calls. Over on the Freeform side, when you launch EPM Automate is a really simple command line wrapper for REST API. So you've got that same common language that you can use to go connect everything, no matter what the Oracle tool is. That is not how it was in olden timey days. There actually aren't API calls in traditional Essbase to create a data load rule. You actually had to manipulate the file format. And if you wanted to edit it, you had to really go in through Application Manager, going through EAS. There literally was no API call to create from scratch a brand new data load rule. They switched it to a JSON format so they could actually create REST API on top of it, because they didn't want to create anything that you could only edit through the front end. They want you to be able to do anything. So yes, the REST APIs are extremely powerful, which makes a nice tie into our next section,
Okay,
which
Edward,
is data integration.
Before you go on, there is one other clarification I wanted to make. You alluded to an EAS Lite or an EAS for 19C. That will never happen. For 21C on premises, there will be an EAS Lite because people are so used to the interface on-prem. They really want us to use the newer interfaces, so it will be a limited interface for on-prem only.
Okay, so just a question on that one. Theoretically, 21C is a environment anywhere, right? Provided you've got Linux 7, whether it's bare metal or it's running in OCI or AWS or Azure, I should still have access to that EAS Lite, shouldn't I?
Theoretically, yes, but if you're using the built-in build of 19C or 21C from Terraform, you're not going to have that capabilities, which I would recommend because it's an easier install.
Absolutely. But that falls into the category of you do have full access to the whole car. You can do anything you want. So while I'm not personally a fan of putting fins on a car, you do have the access to go, like, I'm really used to fins. I think they help me turn better. You can do that with Essbase, especially 21C when it's coming out. Essbase 19C right now is much more limited. It can only be put in Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, only put in OCI, and there's the Terraform build to go create it. 21C is supposed to take off a lot of the limiters, as we heard earlier today from Ashish.
Yeah, if you think about Freeform, think about it, your car is training wheels.
I think about it as my car is driven by someone else and I'm being chauffeured. But yes, Glenn Schwartzberg is much more in the classic Mustang. I'm much more in the self-driving Tesla world. So let's talk about data integration. Sorry, my EPM cloud word should be slightly over there to the left. So in terms of data management, we have full access. So think of it as any method you can use to load Oracle EPM planning, you can use to load Oracle EPM Freeform. So I could use flat files, I could use data management to directly connect to other portions of EPM Cloud, I could direct connect to ERP Cloud for financials, for human capital, I connect to Oracle E-Business Suite, I could do SQL access, I could do it all through data management. FDMEE, if you still have an on-prem instance of FDMEE, and you do need to have it licensed, so you can't just go download it and install it. FDMEE expands even more, so I can do things like direct connect from SAP on the back end to load up into Oracle EPM Cloud Freeform Planning. I do have the ability to do some loads through the standard user interface inside of EPM Cloud. Be aware the file format is different than traditional Essbase. We're not going to talk about OneCloud today, just in the interest of time. I am a huge fan of the product. I like it so much, I became a fiduciary. I do sit on their board of directors, and we actually help them create the connectivity to Oracle EPM Cloud and to Essbase on the cloud. And if you don't like writing REST API and you want full access to anything on the back end, anything on the front end, you can use OneCloud to access it all. Essbase load rules, why would you want them? Let's face it. It's an archaic technology dating from 25 years ago. So yes, we don't have them. So if you do want to do some of that splitting, splicing, a little bit of mild mapping that you can do through a load rule, just do it through data management, FDME, or do it through OneCloud. We do also have the ability to do direct integration on the data visualization side. Do we have data sync to on-prem sources? No, but I can't think of a good use case for it, but I'm sure Glenn can.
Of course. So we don't get some of the things, we don't get data management, but if I'm a pure Essbase user, it's another tool I need to learn. If I'm an EPM Cloud customer, I'm going to know it. So it just depends on where you're coming from. FDME is going to be a custom script solution because I don't believe that the adapters will connect to EPM Cloud. So we're going to run Maxell, bash scripts, that type of things. Yeah, we can upload files and run them in directly from the UI. OneCloud, for you not wanting to talk about it, you talked about it for quite a bit. Load rules, again, it depends on where you're coming from. If you're a classic Essbase user, you've already got all of these load rules built. If I'm switching to Freeform, I've got to rewrite everything to be done in data management. If I'm using Essbase 19C, I upload the load rules, I use my existing Maxell automation, and I'm done with my automation. So it just depends on where you're coming from. Data visualization, as I mentioned on an earlier slide, it is supported. We can connect straight to Essbase from it. You can even write back cubes using the data flows in OAC to create Essbase cubes. And data sync, I can use any kind of source in order to get data in.
So I haven't tried it. I don't know if you've had a chance yet. Have you tried connecting DV data visualization to freeform planning, or like a freeform planning cube, to see how it appears?
I have not. We've tested it against a planning application, and that seemed to be better than the old ways of doing it. The performance is much better, but I haven't tried against Freeform.
Yeah, sorry, this just occurred to me, obviously, because I didn't have a slide on it, but I'm just kind of thinking out loud. Traditionally, data visualization, talking to Essbase, had, suffice to say, some bumps in the road in terms of things that look good and things that didn't. And I never knew if it was the connector on the Essbase side, or it was more kind of how data visualization handled it. So I'm curious, and I don't know the answer on if data visualization will look better and be kind of more Essbase aware because of the layer that planning is putting on top. I'm 98% positive DV directly on top of Essbase is going to be faster, but if DV on top of that kind of planning layer, that Oracle EPM layer to Freeform, if it ends up looking better and being much kind of OLAP smarter, but I don't know the answer. So we'll check it. We'll get back to you all. I'm sure Glenn will write an awesome blog entry on it, or somebody else from interRel that blogs will do it, because I'm kind of curious. In terms of data integration, there are several different ways, but just in terms of terminology, it's almost 6 and 1/2 dozen of another. In terms of data integration, dimension buildings, you've got data management, the standard user interface on the EPM side. Over on the 19C side, you get rules, files, and connectors. I don't know where this one came from. Some people were believing that drill through didn't come across to Freeform Essbase, or didn't come across to Essbase 19C. I'll let Glenn speak for it on the Essbase 19C side, but you definitely have it on the drill through side. You have direct connectors to the whole rest of EPM Cloud, so it's easy to push and pull data back and forth. You have direct connectors to ERP Cloud. By the way, it's not doing an export import. It's pulling it all in memory through the automagicness of the cloud through REST API. You can also get all the way down, for instance, into Oracle's subledgers using the EPM integration agent. You can connect to on-prem ERPs, at least some of them. Also with that EPM integration agent, you have direct access to do SQL. That's, again, another kind of weird one that came up as people thought you couldn't do it. Yes, you can. Data maps, which is an idea inside of EPM Cloud of how this portion kind of goes from point A over to point B inside of EPM Cloud. That is coming soon. One of the nice parts about freeform planning, unlike Essbase 19C, is they just dribble new features in the very second that they are ready. So Safe Harbor, that should be coming out very soon, probably on on a second Friday coming up, first, second, third Friday. We also have no access to partitioning on Freeform. That is for a very specific reason. It's because they're on their own isolated secure servers. You don't really want to, if you have an Essbase cube on server A and an Essbase cube on server B, you have to open up the ports for those to talk through the cloud to hit that. I don't know that that will be coming. As I said before, I do believe, well, I know they're working on it and it should come out fairly soon, the ability to put multiple Freeform cubes on the same server. At that point, I don't know if they'll open up partitioning. I haven't seen that on the roadmap. I don't believe so. It doesn't seem to be a major thing that they are working on, which might be another reason why you might actually want to go to the Schwartzberg side. Glenn.
Okay, well, and so Edward, you said, they dribble in changes into Freeform planning. Well, they dribble in changes to the structure around Freeform planning, but remember, Essbase is really 11.12500, let's just call it. And there's really no changes to it, but they are adding Smart Push, which we don't even have on this list, and other things so it can use those features of things around it. So planning features, but not true Essbase features. Really our integration is using rules files and using the new connectors and SQL interfaces type of thing. And while you can do drill through from Freeform planning because it's using the built-in data integration, data management, you're really only drilling back to the source that you loaded the data from. With Essbase 19C, while I could load the data from table A, a balances table, I could then do a drill through to my journal entries, which is a completely different table, or a joined to multiple tables type of thing. So, and while I don't have direct connectors to, ERP, I do have ODBC based connectors that I can connect into them. And while you might not like partitioning, a lot of people do, where they want to get their data from multiple cubes and put it into one for reasons like history, they don't want to change, that type of thing. We get it in 19C.
So we're having a lot of questions come in on calculations and security. So let's head over to calculations. And I'm going to use a picture of you just to be nice of what you look like with more hair. So Glenn, can you go ahead and address what is and is not available and how it has changed since your younger days in Essbase 19C?
I'm not sure if I can. So obviously member formulas will never change. Consolidation operators, in my day, we called them urinary operators, which was the more exacting term. So we're going to run things based on calc scripts. We can use custom defined functions, but we actually have to steal them from on-prem and load them manually. So this is one place where we'd actually have to get on the box. We'd actually have to build them in. We get the newest functions. So early in your session earlier, I showed the new grid tuple. You won't get that in Freeform planning. You won't get MDX insert. You won't get a lot of the newest things that are available. We can do debugging. It's not as nice as what you can do in Calculation Manager, but we can use calc tracing in order to do some debugging on our stuff. So what about you, Edward? You get it, you get to build any of this stuff?
So it's all Essbase behind the scenes. So we still get those member formulas. We still get the Urinary Operators. We still get the calc script access. We're just doing it predominantly through either the user interface or we're doing it through Calc Manager. Calc Manager, for those of you that haven't switched over and are still back in a world where you're using something like Essbase Administration Services, EAS, Calc Manager not only provides a much better, much cleaner interface, it gives you a visual view, it also gives you a lot of custom defined functions that aren't in the base package. So when you use Calc Manager, what the EPM team did is that there's something that they wanted that wasn't a built-in function, but they wanted it to run at the Essbase level. They just wrote it and created those custom defined functions. That, to Glenn's point, there are new features that have shown up in Essbase 19C. You do not get those Essbase 19C features, and actually you don't even get most of the OAC new Essbase features that show up, including things like the grid tuple functionality. You also get access to things like runtime prompts, though, and as Glenn was mentioning, the debugging inside of Calc Manager is very cool looking. So let's close it off to security before we go in and do a quick poll on who actually won this debate between Essbase 19C and Freeform applications. But would anyone vote for Cobra Kai? Glenn, talk about security on 19C.
I'm sorry, I was answering questions.
I'm making Glenn do double duty. He has to debate me while answering 11 questions that are outstanding at this point.
So, well, some of them are just comments about you, Edward. So
that's valid, actually.
Okay, so our typical Essbase security still applies. They've simplified the roles to be administrator, power user, so we don't have all of those roles that we had before, but we get group level security, we get data security using filters, cell level security. We only have to provision the users once because it's a common IDCS. And we also get to use the new feature of efficient filters. So there's a new function that will actually read a relational table or a flat file, grab user information, and build filters dynamically. So really cool stuff, but it's fully secure like it's always been.
So I'm going to go ahead and give this tail end win over to the Glenn side of things. There are some additional roles, and if you pretty much just have one Essbase cube, you can do all the same things. It's difficult to get down to specific cell intersections, which I wouldn't argue you really want to do anyway. You more want to do kind of dimensional intersection type security. They are adding the ability to do a couple of things you can do in planning right now. You can't do in freeform planning, like valid intersections. That is happening. We are working with them. I do actually like doing the data security over on the dimensional side, where you can say, okay, for this particular member or this subset, all these groups, you have access to it. You have to do it as a separate filter over there in the Essbase 19C world. But filters are very speedy. They're very efficient. They actually happen at the Essbase level versus a lot of the security that planning is doing is more happening at a higher level, kind of applied to all that. So we are going to do a quick poll just after we've discussed on who we think is the winner. So we're going to launch this polling question out for our many, many attendees all around the world. I will encourage you to remember Cobra Kai is evil. But if you want to vote for Essbase 19C, I think that you should be fully allowed to actually do that. I do want to point out that I'm paying for this whole conference. I don't know if that actually gets me any pity votes. Sorry, I can see the votes as they're coming in.
I can't.
This one I feel I need to beg. Okay, we'll give everybody a couple more seconds.
And I know we're over time, but there's a couple questions I want to answer live.
Oh, that's awesome. So what we'll do is we'll finish this part out, and then we'll let Glenn answer questions up to the
you can answer them as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, and we're calling the poll. It was close on who won the debate, but from our standpoint, yeah, we're gonna have to go with Essbase 19C. So that's what happened earlier in the match. But to be clear, I came back at the end with the world's most awesome illegal kick and did take out Glenn. But you know what? I think we can all pretty much agree we deserve a group hug. It's a tie. So in terms of Freeform 19C versus Essbase, key takeaways, if you're only going to remember a couple of things, there are no clear winners. There are no villains, just like in life. There is a different perspective and a side on everything. My advice to everyone, try it. try it in the 19C world. Oracle's being very, very nice with letting you try out an instance of OCI with Essbase running on it, or when 21C comes out, if you have an on-prem license, you can try it out on-prem. I also encourage you to try it in the Freeform planning side. Oracle's more than happy to let you try Oracle EPM Enterprise and see what's available out there. So thank you, everyone. And on a side note, I don't know if you could tell, I'm obsessed with the TV show Cobra Kai. I think it's absolutely amazing. It is so much better than the original movies actually were. So everybody can drop off if they want, but Glenn and I will take a moment to answer questions. Glenn, go first. Which ones do you want to answer live?
I want you to answer this one. So which option is more expensive? You have 20 named users and let's say 5 big applications over a 5-year time frame.
Okay, so the pricing of Freeform planning is you can't buy it separately. You actually have to buy Oracle EPM Enterprise, which comes with all of planning, all of profitability, all of tax reporting, all of consolidations, everything else. That price is a list price of $500 per user per month. So in your example there, quick bit of math, what is that, $10,000? Did I slip a digit? No, it'd be $10,000 a month over on the Essbase, or for 20 licenses of all of that. It would cost you less if all your goal was to get an Essbase cube. It would cost you less than $10,000 a month to go stand up an OCI server, particularly if you already own an on-prem Essbase license, because you can BYOL that license over to the cloud. The reason there's not a truly simple answer to it is you have to do a lot more configuration paying for things on the cloud. So to set up that OCI instance, if you didn't already own it, you have to pay a dollar per hour per CPU cost to run Essbase, and then you have to pay for the cost of the Essbase compute shape. So you're paying, I'm sorry, the OCI compute shape. So you're paying for the hard drive, which actually is cheap. It's like $30 a terabyte a month. You're paying for the RAM. You're paying for the CPUs, which is where that cost will increase. So if you wanted a server with as many CPUs as Freeform planning is throwing at your cube, it's going to be cheaper, oddly, to get it through Freeform planning. If you go, we only need 8 CPUs, it's going to be cheaper if all you care about is Essbase to go with Essbase standalone.
Thanks, Edward. Okay, if my 19C isn't working, who fixes it? Oracle open a ticket and saying it's not working, or do we research it and open ticket specifically what we find? The reality is you're responsible for doing the major work on that. You can open up SRs, they will help you, but you're responsible to get on the box and provide logs and do other things for that. You mentioned 19C will be patched up to 21C. Well, 19C will be patched up to have features and functionality that 21C has, so they're equivalent. They're saying that it says that 21C will be an out-of-place upgrade from 19C, and the answer is I don't know at this point. We don't know if it's going to be an in-place upgrade or out of place. It all depends on how they do the patching. So, so far they're trying to keep the patching in place, but I'm not going to lie to you and say I know the answer.
I'll tackle this next one. Someone says, if you have EPM Enterprise, even if you got it for account reconciliations, can you use Freeform planning? Yes. If you bought it before the day when EPM Enterprise existed, meaning you bought it as just ARCs, you just bought it as account reconciliation, you will have to get your license converted into Oracle EPM Enterprise, but then you have access to all the Freeform planning and everything else. So provided you bought Enterprise, there's no why did you buy it? It's different if you bought EPM Standard or if you bought the separate options separately, but as long as you're on EPM Enterprise, you are golden. I do believe that there are a whole lot of dollar value why you want EPM Enterprise. I actually think it is the best bundle price product that Oracle makes. I mean, if you think about it as it includes planning, it includes consolidation, it includes account reconciliation, narrative reporting, tax reporting, transfer pricing, transaction matching, profitability and cost management. It is so much more than just freeform planning. Truly, it's a huge value over on the freeform planning side. So don't think of it as I'm going to go get Oracle EPM just to get freeform planning. Think of it as, even if I maybe just be buying it right now for freeform planning, or maybe just be buying it for account reconciliations and buying it for planning, you're getting that industrial toolbox with like 75 different things in it.
Okay, and then I'll answer on security. Can you use MSAD groups users on EPM Enterprise? Is there some import, or is it all new users set up specific to the EPM Enterprise environment? And don't quote me on this, but I think that you have to import them. With 19C with IDCS, you can get an additional add-on called Active Directory Bridge that will do automatic syncing. I don't believe it is available in the EPM cloud, but you'd have to ask your rep on that. I don't know 100%, but you certainly can do single sign-on from both Essbase Cloud and from the EPM cloud. So it can go back and authenticate against your on-prem.
Okay, I want to give everybody time to make it on to their final presentation. I'm actually hosting a panel for Ask the Experts, but I will answer this one last question because it's a good wrap-up one. For large companies, is there any benefit to both OAC and /Essbase 19C and having Oracle EPM Enterprise? Yes, in particular for large companies, it's actually the ones I'm recommending they do buy both. I've got a certain really large Fortune 25 customer that has over 1,000 Essbase cubes. They have thousands of people in their planning department, thousands of people in their consolidation department. They don't want to go put all that on Oracle EPM Enterprise. They actually need the value of both. So they need Enterprise for all the EPM related functions, and for that full use complete managing their literally thousands of Essbase cubes, they really need Essbase 19C. In terms of why you would then want Oracle Analytics Cloud, OAC across the top of it all, I'm actually recommending it at that customer because they want to do things like not just pull in data from 50 different sources, that's part of it, but also it's about the cutting edge things. It's about artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. A lot of that is coming to Oracle EPM, and a lot of it is coming to Essbase 19C. It's there right now in Oracle Analytics Cloud. So if you want to go write machine learning routines in R and have it exposed in your dashboard, that's Oracle Analytics Cloud to do that. The flip side of that is, what would I recommend to a small company? If it was a small organization, my standard advice right now is start with Oracle EPM Enterprise. If you feel that you outgrow it and need some of those ridiculously powerful AI dashboards, or you need to build hundreds of Essbase cubes and all the things Glenn just said, then you buy up to OAC and you buy Essbase 19C. I want to thank all of you for attending. We're going to have another panel starting in literally 3 minutes. I think we can all agree I won the debate. Thank you, everybody. Have an excellent day. It's over now.
Thanks, Edward. It was actually fun.
Thank you, Glenn. That was good times.